Well, many are saying there's an active serial killer in Oregon. Well, the police are downplaying it. Let me ask you a question. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you why and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Yep, it's what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those solely of individuals interviewed and participating in this show and do not represent those of Peacemaker Network and Charlie Crimebuster. All individuals described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Today, part 2 of Is There a Serial Killer in Oregon? And today, while many are saying yes, why aren't the police confirming it? Well, we're going to attempt to answer that for you today. But first, welcome to all the listeners, and especially for those who are listening for the very first time. We love to be able to communicate with those that are out there taking a part of riding on the Charlie Crime train. So we want to invite you to reach out with a shout-out. Yep, reach out with a shout-out. You can reach me, Charlie Crimebuster at gmail.com. Charlie Crimebuster at gmail.com. And if you're a first-time listener or you're a part of those thousands of people who have downloaded the program, we always invite you every week to feel free to reach out with that shout-out. You can ask questions, make suggestions. You can disagree. It is a safe zone out there for you to respond. Again, that's Charlie Crimebuster at gmail.com. Hey, by the way, let me also remind you, if you'd like to become a part of the certified armed security team, in other words, be an armed security officer in Florida, well, there's training next weekend. That's just a few days away now. You can contact Jim Mauney. His contact information will be in the show notes. This is an opportunity for you to be able to find an affordable place to be trained by the best. You see, Jim, he trains law enforcement all over the country. He is one of the best instructors I've ever run across in my entire career. And he's available to help you become an armed security officer here in the state of Florida. You can do that in one weekend as far as the certification part. And he will be there ready to train you. Again, refer to the show notes and you can link up with Jim and become a part of the training. And also, if you'd like to support the program, well, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to peacemakernetwork.com. In fact, we're going to be reaching out to those supporters this month with some of the new connections as a token of appreciation for your support. That is peacemakernetwork.com. For as little as $3 a month, you can become a supporter, and you support not only the program, but, you also help us help law enforcement, first responders, and the military. Well, we're going to get to our focus in just a moment on that serial killer, or maybe not. When I say maybe not, you see the police are not yet saying it's a serial killer, though many think it is. We're going to get to that focus in a moment, but first of all, it's time for our Crazy Crook story. Now, our Crazy Crook story this week comes from our northern neighbors. Yep, up there in Canada. And I guess in some way, well, we can all agree with this particular Crazy Crook. And that is the fact that sometimes the navigation system on our phones, in our cars, that GPS deal, well, it can give us some tense moments, right? That voice can sometimes be very annoying, telling you, turn here, turn there, turn here, turn here, turn there. And then reminding you, return to the route, return to the route, return to the route. Yes, it can get annoying. But my friend, this Crazy Crook has every right to be upset over his own GPS. Because the Canadian police, they're sometimes known as Mounties up there. Well, the Mounties, they say that an American man entered the wrong GPS coordinates and accidentally ended up in Canada, which probably would not have been a big deal wouldn't have been a major issue. That is, unless his car was full of drugs and cash. That's right. In a recent press release, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police said the driver took a wrong turn last month. Ended up in the border lineup at the Rainbow Bridge crossing in Niagara Falls. By the way, if you go into another country, it'd probably be best to have a passport. But our crazy crook had none, no passport. And as the driver had no passport, he was referred to a secondary examination. And the Canadian cop, hey, that has kind of a ring to it, doesn't it? Think about that. The Canadian cop. Yeah, I like that. The Canadian cops, they found 400 pounds of cannabis in the vehicle, along with more than $602,000 American dollars. Now, the Canadian cops said the cannabis and the currency was separated into boxes, vacuum-packed bundles, quote, consistent with those commonly used by drug dealers or money launderers. And I love the next statement in their release. Get this, about this crazy crook. They, quote, described the evidence as, quote, highly suspicious evidence. End quote. Yeah, I guess it was highly suspicious, right? 400 pounds, $602,000. Yep, appears suspicious to me. How about you? The driver was a 60-year-old guy from California, Andrew Lee Toppenberg. Now he faces multiple charges, including importing cannabis, possession of proceeds of property over $5,000, quote, knowing that all or part of the proceeds of the property was obtained by a crime in the United States of America. That's what CP24 reports. You can guess it. He was remanded into custody, pending a bail hearing. So, my friend, this driver who ended up following his GPS, followed it all the way to jail. He is indeed our crazy crook of the week. To our focus. Portland residents, they're concerned that there's a possible serial killer on the loose. This is as the city deals with a chilling mystery of six women who've been found dead within 100 miles of each other in the past 3 months. And those bodies, they've been discovered in mostly wooded, secluded, rural areas. Now, according to law enforcement officials, all the women are believed to have lived in Oregon, or at least frequently have visited the state. And according to law enforcement, now get this, it's still unclear. Unclear of their possible connections or links of the women's deaths and disappearances. However, the Portland Police Bureau and multiple county sheriff's departments are investigating for possible connections. But now they've even gone a little farther to warn connecting these to a serial killer at large. In fact, the Portland Police Bureau, they took a strong stance against quote-unquote online rumors, trying to shut down theories of a potential serial killer after the deaths of 6 women under the age of 40 within the last 3 months. In fact, the agency publicly condemned the speculation, accused social media posts and news articles of spreading, quote, anxiety and fear in our community, unquote, without being supported by the facts available at this point. They did kind of hedge their bet, though. They said while any premature death is concerning, they did say that they had no reason to believe that the 6 cases are connected. In fact, that's what the law enforcement agency wrote in a press release. Now, you just might want to ask yourself, why are the police making such a statement? Should they not be warning people of the area? Well, this, my friend, is what we're going to put our focus on. However, we must not, in doing so, we cannot neglect the victims. Here's kind of a summary rundown of those victims. And if they are not victims of one murder, nonetheless, they are victims. They have real names. They all have someone who loves them, and no doubt people who mourn their deaths. The first body, it was discovered on February the 19th. there in southeast Portland's Pleasant Valley neighborhood. Authorities there found the body of 22-year-old Christian Smith. Now, again, let me remind you, these are real people. Here's words from her family. In fact, from KPTV. They said, prior to her body being found, more than 2 months after she went missing in southeast Portland, 22-year-old Christian Smith family, well, they're still holding on to hope that she'll be found. In fact, Haley Smith Christian's sister said this, quote, "It's like a piece of you is missing. That's really the only way you can describe it." And each day that passes, well, Melissa and Haley Smith, each day they did not hear from Christian, they got more concerned that she was in danger. They went on to say, this is prior to the body being found, a main concern of ours now is sex trafficking. We don't know, but with things we've been told, people who know her are saying it's a possibility because it's just not like her to disappear. She last spoke to her on November the 19th, had not had contact with her since. She said, when I tried to reach out to her, she didn't answer. Well, unfortunately, they found her. They found her now, and now they're saying that the cause of matter of Smith's death, quote, so far undetermined. That's per the medical examiner. Now, just over a month later, after Christian Smith was found, on April the 8th, police and firefighters, police and firefighters in Clark County, well, they found another dead body. This was Joanna Speaks. They found Joanna inside a barn on abandoned property, Ridgeville, Washington, about 22 miles north of Portland. Notice that this is all in and around Portland there. Now, according to the county medical examiner, well, Speaks, they did say she died of blunt head and neck injuries. They also believe that her body was moved to the location where it was found, been murdered somewhere else. Now, Errol Hamby, he wrote this. He said, Joe would have been celebrating her 33rd birthday, but we don't get to do that instead. Instead of being joyful, sending good wishes, well, that's replaced with feeling of loss, pain, confusion, even anger. Now, Speaks, she leaves behind a 7-year-old daughter that she shared with her estranged husband and 2 boys from a prior relationship, mother of 3. Then, number 3, on April the 24th, authorities discovered 2 more bodies. First, the body of 24-year-old Charity Lynn Perry. They found Charity in a culvert around the historic Columbia River Highway. And they did say that this is an ongoing suspicious death investigation. Now, news people also did speak to her family back in April. And they told reporters they believe she died trying to defend herself. Could have left marks on the attacker. Her sister says she's so full of life, was so full of life, hard to explain it. Charity Lynn Perry. Now, the same day, the authorities would discover another woman's dead body in the southeast Portland Lentz neighborhood. Now, they're asking for help to identify this one. She's possibly a Native American or Native Alaskan. She was between the ages of 25 and 40. She was described as having black medium-length hair, slightly over 5 feet tall, about 135 pounds. The unidentified woman had 2 scars on the lower part of her left leg. Also had a black music note tattoo on the upper left side of her chest. Buddha tattoo, upper right back. You know anything about that, contact authorities. Then, on April the 30th, 31-year-old Bridget Leanne Ramsey Webster, found in northwest Polk County. And just 6 days later, April the 30th, officials found the body of 31-year-old Bridget Leanne Ramsey Webster. Again, that was just 6 days later from the other ones. Authorities say that she's from Milwaukee. She would often visit the Portland metro area. And now number 6, the 6th lady, Ashley Rill, last seen in March, 22 years of age, found in a wooded area, Clackamas County. They're ruling her death as suspicious. Now, a lot of people in Portland and all over the United States now speculate that a serial killer is on loose and remains at large. But even with this news, police are still not calling the work of a serial killer. Why is that? Well, friend, I believe there are several reasons why. But first of all, I think it would do us good to understand the term serial killer. What does it really mean to be a serial killer? Now, if you listen to Charlie Crimebuster, you've heard me talk about this before, but it never hurts to review. You see, a serial killer is typically a person who murders 3 or more persons, with the murders taking place over more than 1 month. It also includes a significant period of time between the acts. Now, there are exceptions. Sometimes timing is more often. Sometimes even the same day as the serial killer urges intensifies. There's always a physiological gratification to the killing, and many of those have sexual contact. But my friend, it's important to know there is a difference between a serial killer and a mass murderer. A mass murderer, well, the mass murderer kills a number of people typically simultaneously, and in a relative short amount of time with no cooling off period. So, my friend, back to that definition. 3 or more persons murdered over more than 1 month, including a significant period of time between the acts. Well, I believe, my friend, as far as that definition is concerned, the killings of these women, well, they do have the marks of a serial killer from that definition. But why aren't the authorities saying the same? Well, you and I, we talk about 6 women being found within those months with 100 miles apart, and we say, man, that just really stands out. But maybe not there in that area because of the sheer volume of people who have been killed and are missing in that area. Now remember, one of the victims was a Native American. Well, you probably already know if you're a true crime fan, that is, unless you've been living under a rock, well, that these poor women are often overlooked. Even there's a new series on Netflix and other areas that talks about these Native women being killed. In fact, the FBI's National Crime Information Center, well, they reported 5,203 of these such women disappearing at a rate equal to more than 2.5 times of their estimated share of the United States population. Indigenous women are also 2 times more likely to be the victims of rape compared to white women. You add to this the sheer number of missing women in the area of all types. You see, roughly half of 140 people missing from one of the counties so far this year. 140 people missing. That county, by the way, includes the city of Portland, and their women and girls. That's according to the state's online database. In fact, currently, 401. We're talking about 6 now. They're talking about 401 active missing persons cases statewide. However, there is a detective, Joseph, retired NYPD sergeant. He's also a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He says the sheer numbers should be considered a public safety concern, even if there was no foul play expected. All that missing people. Number of open cases involving missing women and girls in the first half of this year, well, it was already above that of the last year of 2022. Portland police, who keep a separate record, responsible for only a portion of the 466 square miles in the county, they say now they've investigated a total of 489 missing person reports last year. You see, so add to the police work is the fact that you have over 400 missing people. So six of them showing up doesn't say a whole lot to these police officers. It's just 6 of over 400 that were missing. But they found these bodies. There's also another reason why it's kind of losing, I guess, the attention from the police. That's really not the right thing to say. I guess it's causing the police to take a second look. You see, Portland, Oregon, well, it's known to have the largest homeless problem in America. There's a lot of homeless people. According to stats, well, 30 to 40% of these homeless people, yep, they have mental illness. And along with that, there's always crime among the homeless. In fact, recently a homeless woman even attempted to kidnap a child who was walking on one of the walk paths not very far from the homeless camps. A child walking with her mother, and this lady attempted to kidnap another child. Yes, there's crime, stabbings, murders among the homeless. And including in that homeless problem, you always find drug abuse. Yep, drug abuse. And so people die of overdoses. Now, Officer David Meyer, he was of the Central Bike Squad. He says, quote, "My unit is currently working to locate where dealers are, put the pressure on them to either stop or go someplace else." And here's what he's saying. He says, "We've seen drug crosses explode over the last year." He went on to say, "We as police, we go with medical and fire to several overdoses every day. Current record," he said, "is 11 in one day." The volume of fentanyl, well, the volume of drugs we're seeing on the street, unprecedented. A year ago, the idea that the bike unit would be seizing thousands of fentanyl pills at a time was unheard of. But get this, now, anything less than 1,000 fentanyl pills, well, it's just small potatoes for us because of the volume of drugs down here. He went on to say that last year, the big thing they were seeing was M30 pills, often laced with fentanyl. Now, he says, they're even seeing a rise in powdered fentanyl. So, my friend, keep in mind that here in this area where we're talking about these 6 women found within 100 miles out in, that their bodies, many of them, most of them probably have all been transported from one point to the other. They had to get there some way, right? So someone's moving them. That's suspicious in and of itself. But add to that we're in an area where there's hundreds of women going missing. There's a lot of drug overdoses there, and people die of drug overdose. So sometimes they have to take a real look at each one of these deaths. Was this at the hand of a murderer? Or was it somebody who simply had a drug overdose? They also mentioned the fact that sometimes, even with drug overdose, they'll try to move the body, try to move suspicion away, because often when there's a drug overdose, there are other druggies around it, and they want to cause attention away from them. So keep in mind, you have all these homeless people, you have all these missing people, you have a drug problem that is just, exploded in the area, people dying of overdoses, and so the police are saying, well, wait a minute, don't rush to judgment here. We've got to take a real close look at these deaths. Add to that, at this point, there's been no reported. I said reported. I don't know whether there is or not, because we know the police always keeps things close to their vest, but there's been no reported DNA proof. We know that the police do not want to panic the public. Also, if there was one, they would not want to tip off the offender. Maybe they're about to catch him. We just do not know those things. But my friend, whether or not Portland and its surrounding communities have a serial killer, well, the sheer number of these missing people, well, it should really be cause for concern. My friend, we've got to realize that for the same reasons that they are discounting the possibility of a serial killer, get this, listen to me carefully, for the same reason they're discounting a serial killer, well, those same reasons could be revealing a serial killer. That's right. You see, my friend, if you look at the history of serial killers, most always, don't they prey on the vulnerable? And they prey on specifically people who are drug users, homeless, prostitutes. They do that, you see, because they're transient. A lot of times people aren't really looking for them after a certain period of time. They're used to them going off on their own. And groups of those individuals usually hang around other people. It's the drug scene, prostitution scene. Well, it's a scene, my friend, that's not really that friendly with the police. So, my friend, if a serial killer is really involved in this, don't you think they have the perfect cover? The perfect cover. People from different countries, different parts of the state. That open-air drug scene they have there. Maybe prostitution. You have the city that has the abolish the police movement, by the way, right? Yeah, we wanted to get rid of the police. We want to abolish the police. Boy, I'm telling you, my friend. Talk about a real place for a serial killer to lurk. Boy, that's the place, isn't it? And now we have even other breaking news. Now they're saying 3 of the 6 women found dead in secluded wooded areas in Oregon and Washington, they are now believed to have frequented the same places in months prior to their deaths. Now, we've already reported to you that 6 women between the age of 22 and 32 have been found within a 100-mile radius. That's between February the 19th and May the 7th. And law enforcement has been adamant there's no connection between the woman. But now a source close to the investigation says that comment that the police made is premature. It is now alleged that investigators are now looking at potential connections between Joanne Speaks, 32, Charity Lynn Perry, 24, and Bridget Leanne Ramsey, 31. All 3 of those women had been known to frequent Southeast 82nd Avenue and an area near Clackamas Town Center. That's what a source told Oregon Live. So now, my friend, we have real connection. 3 of these people, all seen coming from the same area, frequenting the same place. We have 6 women within a 100-mile geographic area. Their bodies have been placed, staged, if you please, out in a remote area. And 3 of them coming from the same place. All of them have dark hair, are brunettes, except one who had dark auburn hair. Same age, same type bodies, mostly brunettes except one, within 100 miles. 3 of them frequent the very same area. Yep, in spite of the fact that there are all kinds of homeless people there, in spite of the fact that there are people who die of drug overdose in the area, in spite of all of that, I think something's going on in Oregon. I think maybe we have a serial killer lurking, hunting in the area. Well, we're going to keep on the case and keep you updated as we go along so that you can understand what is happening there in Oregon. Is there a serial killer loose on the large? Are they moving about? Is he hunting? Is he killing? We'll keep you updated. So until this time, next time, and by the way, this particular podcast is being released on Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all you good fathers out there. And as a good father, take the time to love your children. Teach them. Teach them to be aware of their surroundings. Teach them to stay away from places where danger lurks. And so, until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert. Yep, for the life you save, it may be your very own.